So in Cleveland yesterday, and this is really interesting, it's everybody's blaming everybody. And that's, what people tend to do. Finger point. It's your fault. You're the reason. Your fault. And I said with Baker and OBJ, I don't care. Whatever. I'm not into that. The bottom line is it's the biggest game of the year for Cleveland, and your team's got a total distraction. And Cincinnati is totally focused after getting beat by the Jets. So you're going to get Cincinnati's best game at home of the year, and Cleveland's a mess. But it is interesting. Tom Brady, 22 years, and he's never had a problem with a wide receiver. Baker Mayfield's first star receiver implodes. Colin, you said you weren't going to blame Baker. Don't get defensive. I'm not blaming him. But it's the reality of Baker. I'm not saying it's Baker's fault. It's the reality of Baker. Baker is combative. Good God, folks. I warned you about OBJ and you didn't listen. I told you it wasn't going to work in Cleveland and you didn't listen. I've been warning you 3 years with Baker. Brady's got a chip on his shoulder, but it never gets the best of him. Baker's got a chip on his shoulder. About half the time it gets the best of him. He calls out the Cleveland medical staff. He called out Duke Johnson's salary. He had to be told by the front office, stop responding to Cowherd on social media. That's a fact. And now this blows up. I'm not blaming. He's combative. In Kansas, he once got into an argument during a coin flip. He did, offensive gestures. Some would say offensive in college to the opposing sideline. He's combative. He's turbulent. A lot of people have chips on their shoulders. Brady, 22 years, never lets it get in the way. And this is something, what I'm about to say here is, I've always said Baker always has to win the press conference. He's always got to be snarky. He's always got to have the final word. And people like that usually have no self-awareness, right? They just don't get. They think they're saying stuff and it won't land and it's not punitive and it won't come back to bite them. You're always better off to take the high road. And a lot of you can just blame OBJ. But we all knew, Joy knew, I knew, Ryan knew, you knew, anybody listening to me, you all knew OBJ can run a little hot. Dak Prescott knew that Dez ran a little hot. And Russell Wilson knows that DK Metcalf can run a little hot. And Tom Brady knows that AB can run a little hot, a little emotional. So they change. Dak changes. Russell Wilson senses that. Tom Brady senses that. Pays a little more attention. Okay? Going to take one for the team, not trying to win the argument. When you're in a relationship as a franchise quarterback or not with somebody that's emotional, that's okay. It's a human quality. Joy, my family, we all got somebody in the family. Runs a little hot. Bring the temperature down in the room. But Baker doesn't have a second gear. Baker's always got to have the final word. Baker's always got to be combative. Baker's got to call out the medical staff. He's got to coin flip against Kansas. When you're at Oklahoma, you have to get into an argument with Kansas. What do they win, a game a year? He just has one gear. Snark, combative, chip. And in this instance, he's talking yesterday, I thought we got along great. Yeah, because the guy who always has to win the argument never really has the self-awareness to understand you're aggravating. By the way, I told you last year on this show, we have it archived. I told you OBJ wasn't into Baker. So I knew it, but Baker didn't. How did he not watch the New York stuff? OBJ's great. Runs a little hot. Dak had a receiver. Run a little hot. Brings the temperature down. Randy Moss. AB for Brady. So bring the temperature down. That's your responsibility as a leader, to be able to work with all sorts of, and I don't know why it is the wide receiver position. I've talked about this before. Maybe it's because they break the huddle first. They're the playmakers on most teams. But, wide receivers sometimes, they're not all Larry Fitzgerald. They're not all Julio Jones. Some guys want the ball, demand the ball. They get frustrated more quickly. That's okay. Your job is to make it all work, is to have a second gear, is to sense the temperature in the room. It's not a blame on Baker. It's a reality on Baker. He's combative with the media, with me, with Duke Johnson, with the medical staff, with Kansas. That's what he is. So if you're flying on Baker Mayfield Airlines, you're just always going to have more turbulence. The good pilots, the good quarterbacks can move around the turbulence. Baker, we're going right at it, baby. That's who he is. It's not blame. It's the reality of his personality. This Aaron Rodgers thing is boy, it's interesting, right? And what a shock. I'm leading with Baker and Aaron Rodgers. It's interesting for a lot of reasons. So the NFL, and I'll read this verbatim, right? I don't want to get this messed up. The NFL is looking into these protocol enforcements with the Packers. Is that, there's a lot of speculation now that Aaron was in places he shouldn't have been without a mask. In August, Rodgers told reporters he'd been immunized, but protocols require Rodgers now to spend minimum 10 days away from the team. That means he's going to miss Kansas City, and he'll be available to come back at the earliest a day before Seattle. Well, then forget it. You're not. Good luck playing the Seahawks, the desperate Seahawks, with 1 day to prepare. It could get worse. The NFL absolutely could step in here and go, listen, you broke protocols. You're out for the Seattle game and one more. Now, we always know with stories like this, a lot of the information comes down the road. They'll write a book about it. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers will be a book. Seth Wickersham will probably write that book. But there'll be stuff that comes out. So what I'm wondering today is something I don't know. But I'm just going to throw it out there because I'm an opinionist. Green Bay knew he was unvaccinated. And because of the turmoil in the summer, and because Aaron has been dramatic and prone to passive-aggressive shots at the franchise, did Green Bay just let it go because they were walking on eggshells because they didn't want to tick Aaron off? And because the summer was so, ugly and bumpy, did Green Bay know it and say, let's just get through this. Let's just support Aaron now. And that is the downside to being highly dramatic and highly emotional. Like I said, Brady's got a chip. It never affects him. Baker's got a chip. It affects him daily. Aaron's got a chip. We know that. He's starting to be closer to Baker than he is to Brady, which is it now affects him and affects people around him. Were the Packers so concerned about walking on eggshells with Mr. Sensitive and Mr. Unhappy that they just sort of broke protocols and said, let's just get through it. Let's just keep him happy. We're playing well. I don't know the answer to that. But it's interesting. Sally Jenkins is a great sports writer, and she had a column yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. And let me read this. She said, obviously it's Rodgers' choice whether to get vaxxed, but he's not entitled to free will on this matter. He's a supposed leader who takes up an ungodly amount of salary space. And he audibly sulked over the Packers' decision to draft his possible successor, Jordan Love. This is where it's interesting. How does a quarterback make people believe in him, not just by throwing it beautifully on the run? Trust is the number one thing in authenticity and leadership. Sally Jenkins quotes the renowned personality profiler and leadership expert Robert Hogan. Robert Hogan said, the most surprising thing he's learned in his research is that 75% of the leaders alienate people with the way they communicate, yet hardly recognize their effect. Among the mistakes they make up, lying to others and thinking others don't see their lies. Keep your word, everything else pales by comparison. Now, we don't know if teammates of Aaron knew. We don't know if he is lying to them or the Packers. I gotta believe they kind of knew, right? People had to kind of know, despite Aaron sort of manipulating and massaging the words in the summer. But I think my number one question in this, and I don't have an answer, but every person listening to this show and watching this show has somebody they work with or somebody in their family that tends to be prone to outbursts and very sensitive. And how do you act around them? He was walking on eggshells. Did the Packers, because of Aaron's dramatic summer, walk on eggshells, know Aaron was breaking protocols and just thinking, God, let's just get through it. We're playing well. Let's just appease Aaron. And that is the downside to being offended daily, emotional weekly, passive-aggressive shots at the organization. Everybody's just trying to appease Aaron. Did the organization go a step further and break rules? I can't wait to learn about that. I don't know. I'm reading as much as I can. But leadership constitutes a lot of things. Sometimes it's not talking. Sometimes it's emotional discipline. And it's always authenticity. All right. Bill Simmons, by the way, was on our show yesterday. Simmons, I was encouraged. Before I get to that, I was very encouraged. Most of the American sports media has been a valet for Aaron Rodgers, parking his quotes for years and playing to Aaron's neediness. I have not, of course. Bill Simmons has also been occasionally willing to say, yeah, some of this is occasionally on Aaron. Here was Simmons yesterday on our show on Aaron.
I think Rodgers is a diva. I think he's been a diva the last couple of years. I thought the way he handled this whole offseason was very diva-ish. He didn't seem like a team-first guy to me. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why he chose the week of the NFL draft to blow it up into an even bigger story. And to me, he just seemed like a classic narcissist the last year, where everything was somebody else's fault. He took no responsibility. He honestly seemed to think he was going to be the Jeopardy host, which was insane. They were never making him the Jeopardy host. So when you throw in everything today, it's like, yeah, that's on brand for what we've seen.
Interesting stuff from a smart guy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.